Writing a 12-month program. Let's have a look. All right, team, you're here with me, Coach Chicken Legs. We're gonna program for 12 months. We're gonna write a year's worth of programming, and we're gonna look through the steps I use to be able to do that process, okay? I'm a massive advocate for 12-month program writing. I love big blueprint writing for a couple reasons. One, it saves you a shit ton of time. In that, if you have massive templates written for each of the things that you've run into in your journey of personal training, like weight loss, muscle gain, power, functional training, and recovery, it's easy then to delegate those to clients and adjust them depending on the client's needs, instead of writing lots and lots of individual programs for specific clients. Now, let me give you a caveat with that, or a rule around that. I only started writing massive template programs after about the first 2 years of personal training, because the skills you need to develop in programming will come from information upload, so you learning more about stuff and doing it a shit ton. So if you're constantly learning new stuff and implementing it with writing lots and lots and lots and lots of programs, you start seeing the common trends in whatever populace you're working with. So if you're working mainly with, or you find interest in working with hypertrophy people who like to gain muscle mass, there are problems that those clients will run into, and there's programming styles that are related more to hypertrophy than the other things. So as you start identifying those through your writing many programs, it becomes very simple and makes a lot of sense to write these massive templates that can then just be adjusted as the client comes through in different parts of their journey. That's why I like it. I often don't suggest it for brand new beginners. I would far rather you write as many programs as you can whilst learning as much as you can. But as you start getting on and you start having a larger and larger client base, and specifically when you start understanding what your niche is better, it starts becoming more relevant for you specifically, because you might not have the time to write individual programs anymore because you've been successful and you're very busy, okay? So let's have a look at it. I do this thing called seasonal programming, and they do it in high athletic sports, and they do it with athletes, they do it with sporting teams. And because of that, I do it with my clients, because if the best in the world physiologists, physios, and sports coaching do it, it is certainly good enough for us at the functional training and general populace level. We've heard about me talk about this stuff before, but there's 4 seasons of programming. You have your off season, your pre-season, your on season, and then of course your recovery season. So you have these 4 seasons. Off season, and again, you've heard me talk about this all the time, but off season is for developing new skills and learning exercise, or if you're a beginner, learning your body, right? So it's developing new skills and learning. That is what this is for. Pre-season is all about developing fitness levels. So that means we're trying to get our client up to a fitness level that they desire for their goal. If they're a sporting athlete, it's easy because, for example, a soccer player will have a certain amount of minutes they need to play on a field and a certain amount of outputs they need to do during a game. So our pre-season is about getting our client ready to do that and get their output and exercise and fitness levels up to a point where they can do that. When they're in the on season and they're now performing in their sport or activity, we now want to get our client injury resistant, meaning that since they're doing a lot of running, or for soccer as the example, or a lot of kicking, we don't want their feet, soft tissue of their feet, their joints or their muscles to break down. So we do a lot of stuff to offset those activities, as well as keeping them happy and healthy during that time. And then our recovery season is all about recovery, who would have thought, but it's giving our clients the much needed rest physically and mentally towards their training it's good. We as coaches need this time a lot as well, because it's good to have a break, but more importantly, to plan for the next round, for the next season, about what went wrong and what went right, and where and how we can improve. Where this becomes relevant, we have off-season, pre-season, on-season, and recovery season, is for two things. It is important for my individual blocks and camps, and it is relevant for my actual whole 12-month program. So for my 12-month program, I will have, for example, roughly 4 camps a year. It depends now on how long your camps go. Some camps will go for 4 weeks, some will go for 6, some will go for 8, some will go for 12. I like between the 6 and 12 mark, the 8 and 12 mark, but you do you, boo. But because of that, we have between 5 and 6 camps a year. For ease sake, because I don't have time to deep dive with it on this singular video with you, if you want me to deep dive with your own personal training, shoot me a message and I can help you out. But for ease sake, let's say there's 4 camps a year. There's at the beginning of the year, there's in the 2 middle parts of the year, and then there's the end of the year. Now, if we're thinking about our 4 seasons, we have our off season at the beginning of the year, our pre-season and our on-season in the middle of the year, and our off-season, our recovery season at the end of the year. Okay? So that would mean that a lot of your training for the beginning part of the year is all about skill development. Your middle part of the year is all about getting a client fit enough and then maintaining that level of fitness to perform their sport. And the end of the year is all about recovering them and helping them for the next round of fitness and health. So you break your year into these 4 steps. Now, some of these camps might go longer than others. For example, hey team, if you're liking this content, what I need you to do is follow us, support us, leave comments. We're here to help programmers be better at programming, make coaches and PTs the best of the best that we can, and it starts with programming and it starts with you. Share, like, subscribe. Brand new beginners might spend a whole year just doing off-season because they need to develop the skills to be able to do anything. So in your group class, they might spend most of the time focusing on the beginning learning off-season stuff while they're losing weight and learning how to fitness, okay? You might spend less time doing recovery. So at the end of the year, you might only do a month of recovery, which is totally fine, or 2 months of recovery as the client spends needed time with their family. It's around Christmas time, so people will wanna settle in and they don't necessarily wanna do their training, or the actual time of which they would be competing is now over and they do need that needed rest. They might have a very short on season, they might have a very long on season, whatever. Doesn't matter. But just keep in mind, these are open for adaptation. I can already hear your thoughts, and I can hear you say to me, but Coach Chicken Legs, does that mean that my client spends somewhere between 2 and 3 months just learning skills, or just 1 month of just doing recovery, or 2 to 3 months a pop doing pre and on season work? Yes and no. Mainly no though. If you were to do that, your clients, any new clients you would get, if you just spent 3 months doing pre-season and off-season work, most new clients who don't know what they're doing, or clients who are already athletic who need more of a push, would quit. They wouldn't stick with you because it's too linear. There's no diversity. It seems very rigid. It doesn't make any sense to them because they're not thinking in a year's goal, they're thinking right now. Same true as if a client was to come in halfway through the year into the on-seasons part of your camp, then they might be completely left in the dust. So it's not effective if you stick to it in that regard. And this is where this program becomes really, really awesome. So we have our off-season, our pre-season, our on-season, and our recovery season for the year. But we also run the same system for our camps. This is where the system starts to work magically. In our system, in our 12, again, we're gonna say that there's 4 camps in the year, but you can have as many as you want. Our first bit of our 12-week camp, or 12 to 8-week camp, is gonna be off-season, meaning that we are teaching the client new movements or a new training style, or we're testing 1RMs or whatever. We are seeing and teaching our clients something new. And that might last for the first 1 to 3 weeks. Then we move to our pre-season, which is where we start wanting to develop our clients' health a little bit more. We're starting to encourage more fitness-related stuff. So instead of perhaps doing more machine work, compound lifting, muscle development stuff, we might move more to circuit stuff or cardiovascular style training. We might start trying to now increase heart rate outputs, okay? So this is now, we're no longer learning new skills. We might use the skills we've learned to help elevate their heart rate, but the main thing we're doing now is improve fitness. Okay. From there, we move to our on-season, which is now where we're gonna start actually using the skills and heart rates and strength that they've now developed and put it into practice and help maintain this higher level or moderately higher level, depending on the client's capacity, of outputs. So this might be retesting, so seeing how much muscle or how much strength they've improved. We might be trying to really push their heart rate to that higher end of their capacity to see how much they've developed and strengthened, whatever. And then we might finish off the camp with a recovery season equivalent, which might be a week. And it might just be loosening any tight muscles, helping to prevent any long-term injuries or offset some of the niggles that developed in their life, or we're trying to prep their body for the next round of stuff we're doing. And you might find that the camps go anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks each bit, or 1 to 2 weeks for the recovery. Hell, they could even just have a whole week off for their recovery if they want. So my camp runs the same as my year. So that way, no matter where my client fits in to my year, or whenever I accrue a new client, or if my client is at a higher skill level versus another client, it doesn't matter because they just simply slip into the mold, and each camp is its own organism within a bigger picture. And now I can already hear it again. I can hear you saying, Coach Chicken Legs, doesn't that mean, how does that work? If if the year's broken down into 4 steps, one being off season, one being pre-season, one being on season, one being recovery system, but the actual camp itself is divided equally, how the hell does that work? Doesn't that just mean that you're gonna have the same thing all year round? No, because you will adjust the exercises depending on the bigger picture. So for example, if I'm at the start of my year and I want to do more off-season work, I might do, instead of 1 to 3 weeks of off-season work, I might do 2 to 5 weeks of off-season work and just make the other sections slightly shorter. I might do the same for if we're on season. I might decide that the stuff that's the harder section of my year, or we're in a group class, we will really want to test the skills and fitness levels we have, I might make that 2 to 5 weeks long and shorten everything else. For recovery, I might do the same thing. I might make it 2 to 4 weeks long and have mobility movements and exercises and all these things. We're never cutting out the other sections of our program. We're just lengthening and shortening them to allow them to fit into the bigger picture. So the start of your year might be a little bit more off-seasonal work in your camps than the rest. Your middle part of the year might be more pre-season and then eventually on-season, and the end of your year might be more recovery season. It doesn't matter. The more thing I want you to picture is that there's two things happening at once here, and I'm hoping that's not going to confuse you. But you have the program that you're running in the moment, you have the workouts that they're doing on the day, and then you have the yearly picture that's happening around them. The yearly picture has 4 seasons. The camp itself has 4 seasons. And then the actual program itself has rules that we will break down in a moment. But it also will depend on what the goal of the overarching program is. As you will learn throughout these videos, there are different rules for different things. So yes, there are general rules for fitness and health and programming. But when you start getting better at this sport and better at this education of this job or this career, you're gonna find that muscle gain has different rules. Weight loss has rules. Power has rules. Functional training has rules. Mixed training has rules. So as you get better, we start looking more into niche things. But the core principle that what I'm trying to do never changes. So I'm always in season in some space. I've always got seasons amongst my 12-week programming, and then I always have the program rules at the center of my year program. It makes life so much easier when you know how you're programming for the year, because it just, when you have these templates that we'll give you, you can just slip stuff into it because you know that this is roughly the time I should be teaching my client new skills in the off season. I know that it's going to take between 8 and 12 weeks depending on my client's skill level, and I know that I'm doing it for power, which has its own set of rules. The more rules we put in, the simpler these processes become. It's very mathy. It's very much like maths when 1 + 1 is 2. So it's like when you are in a on season for a sport, we know that means we have to have them at a certain health level. Rules, we love rules. I'm gonna give you a little tip. The tip is heavy clients, which could be another word for deconditioned, new clients, athletes, sometimes people at the higher ends of the spectrums, so athletes being at one end and deconditioned or never trained in their life being at another, will spend more time in each section. So if I'm doing a one-on-one training session, I might, for the year, for a completely deconditioned new client, only do on off-season stuff. Because I need to develop the skills, learning and understanding to be able to push them any further. Must understand what they're doing before they can do it hard and well, okay? They're still gonna get results, but the goal really is to teach them how to fitness, yeah? For our athlete, we might spend less time in off-season because they're quite intuitive. So for perhaps a jiu-jitsu athlete, we might spend less time developing skills like how to correctly do a DAS choke or a rear naked choke, but we might spend more time trying to get them to be able to apply the same rules and pressure of that choke under the same kind of environment that perhaps a competition would yield. So they might do harder training rounds with the sole goal of trying to get a rear naked choke. Why? Because we're seeing if we can apply the learning to the heart rate level that they would find in competition. So different clients will yield different things. For you, and for most people who watch these videos, you are general population trainers, and what you'll find is that you'll get a little bit of diversity, but most people are pretty happy just following the 4 seasons back to back to back. Now, there are some really common questions that I get asked in regards to this system. Let me answer them for you right now. Number one, what if I accrue clients at different times in the year and they don't start at the beginning of my seasons? Well, we've kind of already touched on that. Since your camps are built the same way as your year is, your off-season, pre-season, on-season, and recovery season, then that means that the client can just slip into whatever camp is running. It doesn't matter. The camp's structure will allow new people to join as much as they'd like. Next one is, what if my client is a sports athlete and they are a winter sport for on-season versus an on-season in the summer or whatever? Your clients, if they are an athlete and they have certain times they're performing or they have a competition they're training up for, like a bodybuilding show, find the date that they're working, that they're gonna perform, and work this system back. So it's okay not to run it from the start of the year to the end of the year in your programming. You can move it from halfway through the year to halfway through the next. Just find when their on season is, because that's your best metric to know when they're needing your work, and work backwards. Okay, knowing that recovery is going to be after on season, pre-season is before on season, and off season is before pre-season. Okay, good idea to write this shit down. Who would have thought? Another question that I get all the time. What if I can't think to write anything? What if I don't know how to write these things? That's fine. I'm going to provide you hundreds of years and hours of programming over the period of these YouTube videos, and I'm going to give you some physical documents. There is some really, really exciting projects coming for you. In the meantime, you should absolutely be leaning on your mentors that I would heavily suggest that you use. If not, there are a couple of online coaches who might be able to help you out. There are books like the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger that have some interesting stuff around hypertrophy. There are tons of resources. If you're really stuck, you are welcome to contact me and we can arrange a conversation for me to help you move forward in these progressions, okay? The next question I get is, how do I know the program's gonna work? Or how do I know this system works? And the easiest way to test it is to do it yourself. I am a big advocate for doing your own training. So you should be programming for yourself. You should be testing things that you're soon to give to your clients. Ideally, you are training in a similar space that you are working with clients. So if you're a hypertrophy coach, you should probably be training hypertrophy yourself. So my advice, a rule that I really like, is test yourself. Now, yourself. I understand that you can't always do a year's worth of testing before you take it to the market. I get that, but you can do a 6-week camp before you start selling it to clients. That you can do. You should always be a camp or two ahead of what you're selling so you can adjust as you go. Very important that you have that in your arsenal, that you're constantly adapting things as you go. Otherwise, you're gonna give clients programs that you're not confident in because you don't even know if they really work. So I would suggest that you are doing your own programming or getting one of your mentors to do it. Okay, test your shit, team. Otherwise, you don't know if it's working. A really common one I get is, how much rest should I give the client? Look, it does depend. I'm a big advocate for 2 rest weeks per camp and then a month at the end of the year. Okay, why? Because 2 rest weeks a camp means that I can do 1 rest week at the very end of the camp, which might be some recovery stuff to help offset. I might even just give them a full week off where they're not allowed to come to the gym, they need to go home and rest, and that kind of builds up this I want to go back to the gym pressure. I like to add in maybe 2 to 3 recovery days where we actually just do a day where we're focusing on mobility and health per camp. That's fine. So I might have 1 week at the end of the year camp that's all about doing recovery and mobility, and it's not easy sessions, they just got a different focus. You're not there doing yoga, although you could. It's more about doing functional training sessions to help offset stuff. And at the end of every camp, I like to give them a full week where they are not allowed to come into the gym. I might give them some at-home activities to do, but I will not be seeing them in that space. And that will be for every client, not just my group classes and stuff. In fact, it is okay to do 2 to 3 recovery sessions per camp and have a full week off. You need this week off as much as they do, team, because you need to keep your programming up, you need to adjust stuff, and it is nice not to be in the gym all the time. Heavy preference on taking a week off every 8 to 12 weeks, ideally every 8 weeks. With most clients, you're gonna see that they start dropping off around that 7 to 8 week mark. That's a mental thing that we have as people. That's when we start really getting tested for habit changing. Keep that in mind and program around it. The next question, and the final one we'll touch on, is, do I have to run an 8 to 12 week camp? Nope. You can run a longer one if you want. You can run a shorter one if you want. Hell, you could do one that's just 4 steps. You could do a 4-week camp where you do a off-season camp where you're teaching someone skills, which is for 1 week. You could then do a pre-season for 1 week. You could then do an on-season for 1 week. And then you could do an off-season for 1 week where they do lighter recovery movements. Will it be as effective? No, because with these camps, the reason they're the length they are is because we want to see if we're getting change over time, okay? 4-week camps or 6-week camps are great at getting clients in the door because it's non-committable. I prefer a 6-week camp over an 8-week camp, or over a 4-week camp if I get the preference. However, those big 8 to 12-week camps, you'll be able to accrue a lot of data. You'll be able to see a lot of change in the client over those periods of time. So I'm a big advocate for them because of how much data we see. We know for hypertrophy, we need to have repeated exercise in similar spaces to stimulate the muscle enough to grow and to strengthen. And that's not gonna happen if we only do 2 weeks on a muscle group and then rest it. Okay, or 2 weeks on a muscle group, then retest it. You'll see some growth, but over the whole year, which we should be tracking, all those bigger camps, we'll see far more evidence that what we're trying to do is working. And I really want you guys to not be emotionally tethered to your yearly programs, because you have to understand that if your data is suggesting what you're giving them is not working, you must change it. Like, I don't care if you spent 5 to 12 hours writing a master program. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work, okay? Who cares? It has the evidence of the client's progression is your proof of concept, okay? So you must adjust for these things. So this is your yearly programming. Let's quickly summarize it. We're not going to deep dive into the individual programs, your daily programs just yet. This is programming for a year. So your 12-month program has 4 steps. It has off season, and I hope you get sick of me saying this, team, because you really need to understand it. Off season, pre-season, on season, recovery season, each of them ranging between 2 and 4 months a pop, whatever. And then within your year, you have between 4 and 6 camps traditionally. You can have more. Okay, so within your year, there's 4 to 6 camps, and they will flow through these principles, but they themselves contain an off season, a pre-season, an on season, and a recovery season. Now, I hope you understand that, team. That is the absolute key. Remember that each one of your camps will be more directed to where you are in your yearly plan, okay? And that is awesome. When we're writing programs, we start off by what do we want to achieve this year? Then we go, what do we want to achieve this camp? What do we want to achieve this week? And then what do we want to achieve today? And that is how we write our programs, team. We always start with a bigger picture and work to the smaller. If you focus a lot on what we want to achieve right now today, it will get blurry by the time you get to the year. Work from year down to today, to the session you're about to walk into the room right now. Okay, otherwise the bigger picture will be lost in all the intricacies that come with daily program and weekly program writing. Years and camps is what we're covering today. Years and camps. We will later cover weeks and days, but this is the main meat and potatoes of your massive programming. Years, camps, later, weeks, days. Get it through your head. Anyway, you've been with me, Coach Chicken Legs. Enjoy. Send messages through. I understand this is a bit complicated. Send me messages so that way I can help you. Yeah, easy as. Bye.